Hey everybody, it's Ricky, and I am delighted to be joined today by Audrey Crash, who Hausig, actual name, but we that's how I was introduced to her. Do you remember how we met?
I want to say Ex Friends was coming through Durham.
Yes, that is exactly right. We played a show together. And I'll be honest with you, that style of punk's not really my type of punk rock, but I will tell you, you are without a doubt one of the most talented bassists I have ever seen in my entire life. So,
Thanks. That's
uh,
very kind.
I think you told me Matt Freeman was your favorite bassist, if I remember correctly, or one of your favorites back then. I
I
don't. It might be
mean,
wrong.
he's definitely good. So
And I think you are definitely on that level. I was just blown away. I'd never seen uh somebody so talented on the bass in such a small venue. So just a nice little shout out to you. Very impressive. But uh yeah, so obviously um you care a lot about music because you are a very talented musician. So, kind of where did your passion for music come from?
I've always loved music. My brother is a little, I have to take this.
All right. Sorry. We were talking about just kind of where you started your journey into music because
Yeah, I always loved music. My older brother got violin at school. He actually started on the clarinet and was so bad they asked him to switch. Um, Maybe not nice of me to share, but oh well. Um, and so I asked to play violin and I begged, I think daily for about 6 months. And my parents, like they did summer lessons through the school. So they got me summer lessons when I was about 7.5, I guess. And I loved that. In high school, I also started playing first upright bass at school. And then for my 16th birthday, I got a bass guitar. And I went to college for music, and I've just always loved everything about music.
yeah, it's I was very fortunate. I grew up in an artist household, so I got lots of exposure to music at a very young age. And
Mhm.
um, one of the things, so what was that transition like for you when you went into the bass guitar? Like, did that?
Well, I did upright bass first,
Yeah,
just through high school. It was
yeah,
just there and free. So it's not all that different
yeah,
conceptually from violin. It's you're reading a different clef. The strings are different, but they're the same intervals apart. So the way you structure your fingers,
hmm,
you do the intervals in the same way. So it wasn't that different. And then switching to bass guitar from upright bass, it's really just physical, but you're doing the same thing. If you're
yeah.
reading music, you're reading the same notes. Not that I read a ton of music while playing bass guitar, but it's the same thing.
So when I met you, you were in a punk band, and actually I got to play with you in two of your bands, Ex Friends and Pushing It to the Limit. Uh, right? It was Pushing It to the Limit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I want to make sure I got that right. With leader, right?
Uh-huh.
Was with you in both of those bands.
Yep.
So how did you how did you fall into the world of punk rock? Uh,
Yeah, I mean, I guess, how did I learn about punk? Just through, different people and avenues. I was already into punk in high school. And so when I started playing bass guitar, that I was self-taught on. And so I would just listen to the CDs and records that I liked and learn from there. And so my first band in high school was a little eclectic, but mostly a punk band. And then when I moved away for college and moved to Philly, my band there was definitely a punk band. Um, and yeah, I mean, that's the kind of music I favored for the most part, punk, metal, even though I like other kinds of music as well. And
uh,
yeah, it's just what I do.
so what is what was some of the biggest, what were some of your favorite bands? Like what is, when you were listening to, that got you, that you learned to play along with?
Dead Milkmen for sure. They're still my favorite band. They're what helped me
Fantastic.
make the decision to move to Philly from Long Island.
Oh, that's excellent.
Because when you're 18, that's the type of decisions
Punk
I
rock
wish
girl,
I
right?
made.
Yeah.
I learned Super Chunk early on because it's was something that you can hear it well on the CDs, and it's not super complicated, so it's
Yeah.
something I was able to just do. It was
Yeah.
accessible.
Those
Um,
were my hometown heroes because I
oh
grew up in
yeah, of
North
course, of
Carolina.
course.
So yeah.
Yeah, I still love them. I saw them recently, or last year, I guess. I went by myself. Um,
Oh,
our babysitter fell through,
oh
so
no.
well, I'm
I
still
know.
gonna go. So I went by myself, just fine. It's not like I'm trying to talk to someone while I'm watching the show. So
Oh,
yeah, I think early on, those two, just playing along and learning.
um, yeah, that was one of the things I think was very, I think is what really stood out to me with your playing is it was uh I don't know that I've seen classical guitarists and I don't know it's quite a classical guitar approach to playing bass, but there was definitely an elegance there that is not regular in um most punk bassists. Even like exceptional bassists
Mhm.
tend to be a little more brute force, and you had a lot of flourishes in there that I thought were really neat.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll say Dave Blood is one of my favorite bass players from the Dead Milkmen, and
Mhm.
so that definitely has an influence. But yeah, I'm classically trained on
Okay.
violin, and I love Baroque music, which is very busy
Yeah.
and plays with um, to get nerdy about it. Shifts in like minor and major
Yeah.
chords, and so I do appreciate that, and I do put a lot of that on my bass playing. My bass playing, in all honesty, is also I like to play fast because
Yeah.
I do like classical music and I like metal, and there's a lot of
Yes. A lot of
um,
overlap there.
there really, really is. So I like that. Also, I've been questioned about my ability to play so much that sometimes I think early on showed off for that reason because so many people are like, "You're the merch girl. Is that really your bass? Oh, a fretless, play that." So I mean, consistently all the time. So
Yeah, that is
so
a
I
very
that I think that
sorry.
has pushed me to be a little bit showy.
Um, I think it's excellent. Excellent. I enjoy your showmanship. But you also, while I think you are a very talented musician, you harness that in a different way professionally, right? So, what do you do? What is your job?
So I'm a board certified music therapist, and I work for myself. So I do contracts and I do private practice. And so I work with a variety of people with a variety of ages and needs. A lot of my work is trauma work, so people recovering from trauma, from substance use disorders or struggles. Um, I spent, so I've been doing this almost 23 years. I started in a nursing home. Then I worked for 5 years with people in a residential place who had pretty severe physical disabilities. A lot of people with multiple sclerosis, cerebral palsy, spinal cord injuries, brain injuries. And then I shifted and I worked at an outpatient for substance use and mental health treatment. And then I spent 6 years at a state psychiatric hospital with adults. And then I shifted to another inpatient psychiatric hospital with children and adults. And then started my private practice. So I kind of work all over. I go to a school, I go to substance use outpatients, inpatients. I see people individually through telehealth now. So I'm kind of all over as a music therapist. And I do like continuing education, clinical supervision, and I teach at a university.
So, how did you fall like find this career? Like, what? Obviously, we've talked briefly about our mutual love for music, but this is such just a wonderful thing that you do. How did you discover it?
Yeah, I mean, when I was in high school and the guidance counselor said, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "Music." And he's like, "Well, pick something for real." And I said, "I don't know, social work." But I still went to school for music. Just that's what my
Yeah.
it was not well thought out. I spent thousands of dollars on a college education just because I wanted to move away.
I've got an English degree. I understand.
But it worked out because I went to Temple, and Temple had a music therapy program. I think I initially did music theory because I didn't get into performance. And when I learned about music therapy, I was like, oh, like this is my purpose in life. It was just very obvious that this is what I wanted to do. So I was able to transfer over, and Temple had an amazing program. I got to study with Dr. Cheryl Dillio and Dr. Ken Bruscia, who they wrote a lot of the books that people use all over the country and even all over the world for music therapy training. So I learned about it, and it just was just so perfect. It was just super lucky. You know, Temple was a safe school for me. I'd applied to conservatories. I had no hope of getting in, not on violin. Had I done on bass, I probably would have, but not on violin. Temple was my safe school, and my brother was in school in Philly. And, you know, the Dead Milkmen were my favorite band. So I was like, why not? I'll go to Philly.
Yeah.
And it was like complete luck.
Leap of faith.
Yeah, just meant to be.
Yeah.
Destiny. I don't know. I was very, very lucky because it's really the perfect thing for me because I've always been very invested in working with people and trying to help them, you know, get to where they want to be at. And I was a kid, like 5th grade, my teacher would call me to the back of the room, and I'd sit with him during, I guess, quiet times or work times, and he would tell me his troubles and his concern about other students, which was highly unethical, but like I'm that person who people talk to, always have to.
Yeah.
So it kind of was really serendipitous.
How is, like, so do you feel, because I mean, to me, sorry, I'm thinking of how I want to say this, because to me, you know, music has been therapeutic for me my whole life, right? It's been a safe space for me. But the idea of music therapy to me is something that had just never occurred. Like when I discovered, like, we became Facebook friends, I discovered that was your career. I was like, oh wow, that is a brilliant combination. Like, that makes total sense. So how long has the music therapy been around? Like, how long has this field
Yeah, I mean, people have used music for healing since forever.
Right.
As a profession in this country, since after World War II, people were using music in the hospitals as people came back with injuries. So it's been a profession since the 40s and 50s. And what differentiates music therapy and just therapeutic music is, yeah, we all use music therapeutically in our own lives,
right?
In our communities. But what music therapy is specifically is that there's a therapeutic relationship with a music therapist. There's assessment, there's goal setting, there's evaluation. So we're using music specifically in a way to help that person figure out what their goals are, to build this safe space. No space is safe, but the safest possible space with the therapist, and to work towards their goals.
How, like, so is this a growing industry, do you feel like? And I mean, more or like more widely accepted, or more not accepted, practice? I'm trying to think of the right way to say.
I mean, it's definitely a newer profession.
Yeah,
it's growing. A lot of people still don't know what it is, or still there are a lot of misconceptions about it, that it's like, sticking an iPod on an older person is music therapy. That's not, and that could actually be pretty dangerous, because if you think about it, music can really bring up a lot of strong emotions or memories. And so we don't want to do that to somebody and abandon them. We want to be really intentional and careful about how we use it. So it's a growing profession. It's getting licensed in more and more states recently. I don't think North Carolina has a license. Virginia, Maryland just got their license, and it's happening. They have over, I think they have close to 200 licensed music therapists in Maryland now. Pennsylvania is working on it. New Jersey has a license bill approved, and they're just ironing out the details. New York has a creative arts therapy license. So it's growing in that way. The license is important because then it can increase access.
That's I actually, one note, I moved to Richmond, Virginia a few years ago for my wife's job. So that's exciting to hear. It's in Virginia. I'm gonna have to see if I can find a music therapist here.
Their bill is passed, but I don't think it's in effect yet.
Okay.
Maryland's happened really, really fast from when it got passed and signed to when it was implemented. I don't think Virginia's is implemented yet, but there's lots of music therapy in Virginia.
So what is music therapy kind of, you were touching on that a little bit, and if you
Yeah, like,
could, I mean,
what is it?
yeah, what is
Yeah.
it? Yeah,
I mean, it's
really.
really different in different settings. So if in the hospital, I'm thinking I was just at the hospital with my child and her broken elbow. In the hospital, a music therapist might help a child get through a procedure. So they might do some songwriting about the procedure ahead of time to work through the fears and then play the song while the procedure is being done. So they're focused on the music and working through their anxieties or fears and not focused on whatever's happening to them. I do a lot of group work and a lot of group work in mental health and substance use. And so how it goes is, and this is, what I share. We've got group from this time to that time. We usually do a check-in where folks are invited to share how they feel, what they're working on or what's important to them, maybe speak on something that happened in the last group if it's a consistent group of people. And so once we do this check-in, we decide a topic together. And then I'll offer some things to do with the music to work on the topic. So if the topic was working on self-worth, I'd say, should we get the instruments out and play together and improvise on just how you feel about yourselves as a group? Should we write a song about what you struggle with self-worth? Or maybe some validating affirmations about self-worth? Or should we maybe listen to songs that explore self-worth and talk about them? So then they've got a choice to improvise, do songwriting, or listen. Or we could also, if it's a familiar song, we could play the song together. We could recreate it with instruments.
And I'm assuming for a lot of people here, they are probably novice musicians, right? They are learning.
Absolutely. Yeah, some people are incredible musicians with tons of experience. Some people have never played before. So I bring instruments that are accessible. So a lot of percussion. If with the piano, if someone just plays on, say, the white keys, I know what to do on the guitar or on another piano to make that fit.
The accompany, yeah,
right?
yeah.
So we're playing in the same key. So if they're on the piano on the white keys, I'm in C major or A minor.
Yeah.
Or they can do a xylophone. On the guitar, what I'll do is I'll tune it down so that it's a D chord, either D major or D minor, because you don't have to, I can do that really quickly and all they got to do is strum.
Yeah.
So that it fits harmonically and it's accessible to everybody. And so while the clients are playing, I'm making space. I'm mirroring what they're doing or doing a call and response. I'm kind of holding. I'm maybe playing a bass line on the guitar or on the piano that is repetitive and kind of gives them some grounding and support. But yeah, nobody needs to have prior experience. It's done in a way that's accessible to everyone, regardless of experience and regardless of physical ability. So we try to make the instruments accessible. If there was something physical where they couldn't grab or reach. Now, sometimes in physical rehab, when you want someone to reach, this is the wrong kind of drum, right? You're gonna put the drum here so the person has to reach for it, right? Or has to grab the mallet.
Yeah.
Depending on what it is they're working on. Not to coerce them, but when we hear a beat, like we want our bodies want to move to the beat.
Yeah.
And so our body's going to if you're just saying stretch out like this, your body's like, whatever. But if it needs to hit that drum to hit the beat.
We're giving it an activity. Yeah.
Yeah. But especially if a song is familiar, the body's going to want to do it and it's going to make us push. So that's an example of adults. We do a lot of processing, and talking about with adults. Kids, not so much. We're in it. We're rocking out, but we're doing it in a way that, again, is meeting their goals. If the kids are overstimulated, we're doing movements that are making our bodies cross. This is our midline. The bodies are crossing midline so that the body regulates. We're taking turns. We're working on transitions. Again, just depending on the needs, and it's just so individual. It's for me, I'm always shifting in the moment to hopefully meet people's needs to have them lead.
This is just I'm going to be honest with you. It's fascinating to me. It's something. I mean, I think we're in roughly the same age range. We're in the 40s, I believe, and you're a little bit older than me, but I imagine we had a similar childhood in that therapy in the United States was even at that point, it was just starting, the taboo was starting to break down a little
Mm.
bit on therapy and in popular culture in the 90s, really. And so I did went to therapy at 16, but what you're talking about, I think, man, would have been transformative for me. So it's
Yeah,
I'm glad that this is out there. I'm like
yeah,
just hearing you talk about it, it's like, wow, I could have that would have really helped me channel a lot of my like frustration, because I did I got into punk. I think a lot of the reasons a lot of people did is it was more of a therapeutic thing for us, right? Like a way
sure.
to deal with these negative emotions.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
sorry, go ahead.
I've cut you off because I'm excited. I apologize.
No,
Yeah, I
you're
mean, when
good.
I work with teenagers, especially inpatient psych, which is such a hard place to be, in addition to whatever brought
Yeah,
them there, when you ask them to just talk about what's going on with them, that's really hard for them. But if they're allowed to share a song, teenagers have songs. They have
yeah,
all the songs. The
yeah,
teenagers are ready. And so a kid who might not want to talk to somebody, especially some weird old
yeah,
adult, right?
yeah,
From especially when there's a different cultural background and
yeah,
cultural
yeah,
identities. It's like, who is this 46-year-old lady
yeah,
therapist weirdo? But if I say, can you share a song, just share how you feel, we listen to their song, which validates, and their song might, the artist might have experienced the same thing as them.
yeah,
And so now they're sharing about
yeah,
their trauma or what they've been through, or just even just how they feel.
yeah. I mean that's something I think the past few years have really caused a lot of people to become more introspective.
Mhm.
And one of the things my wife and I've noticed is she's gotten much more into music, which makes me happy because it's probably my greatest passion. And and now like she's actually listening to songs in the way that I do, like hearing, we are talking about, oh, look at how they did a tempo change here, or how they're using dissonant sounds to create feeling like, or and this is how the lyrics are interplaying, like because then I think pop music songwriters are very talented, and some pop songs do really make me feel things. But I think one of the things I've always found in like punk rock and alternative rock and hip hop and a lot of emotion, like emotion driven music.
Mhm.
They do a lot of using the songs and the words to tell you a story. That does help me connect with. Hey, I know what you're going through. I felt that the way that song sounds is what it sounds like in my head sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I just, for me, I think that's wonderful. And I just want to tell you, I'm so glad I got to, you shared a little bit about that. We are going to take a little break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about music venues. And we're both
Okay.
doing this off the top of our heads. So this will be interesting. We're doing
Okay.
top 10 venues to play in. I am back with Audrey Hausig, which for this half I think will be more the crash side. We're going to talk about top 10 venues we've played, and we're doing this off the top of our domes, so it should be fun. So you want to kick off? What's your number 10?
Yeah. I mean, oh wait, am I supposed to go with not my favorite?
Yeah, we're gonna go
I
lowest
gotta
to
build
highest.
up.
Yeah,
Okay. So I gotta save the best for last then.
yeah.
All right. I'm just gonna go with the last place I played, which is Century Bar in South Philly. I'm not a drinker, and it is a bar, but it's very laid back. The guy who runs it, Jay, been in the scene forever, and yeah, you just go and you play. Um, he's cool as a sound guy. Um, and yeah, you just go and play, and it's cool, and I like that, and it's kind of close by to where I live.
All right. I For me, I think I'm gonna go with the place I actually played with you. We really like playing there. Andy Clark was doing sound back then in the main stage. It's cool. It's a cool spot. And my favorite place I've ever played in Philadelphia is Kung Fu Necktie.
Okay.
That's a I love the venues where you can get the main stage and like where they have the side stage, because I think it makes it more accessible to more bands and makes it better for tour. And it was cool just because it feels like such a Philly place. I mean, the church, I've never played the church, so I can't put that on my list. But I imagine that's probably a great place to play. But Kung Fu Necktie is one of my favorites I've ever played. So
I'm
what's
realizing that like when I think of like big venues, like when you play a huge show, like it's kind
yeah,
of cool, but none of those are my favorite.
yeah,
All my favorites are little. Like it's
yeah,
a cool experience to be on the big stage, but once or
yeah,
twice is enough for
yeah.
those
I
places to
uh,
me.
I love small spaces, especially if the crowd gets excited. So,
Hmm.
um, all right.
Um,
So, what's your number 9?
okay, I'm gonna say it's hard to put these in order, but I'll say there was this place. It was a house in South Carolina, Greensville. Um,
Greenville.
and
Greenville.
ex-friends played there, and it was a tiny little living room, and it was amazing. And all the people started doing this, and we're like, what's going on? Are they going to jump us? Like, what's happening?
It's a
And
gang.
they cleared the floor, and they did a pyramid, a human pyramid.
Oh wow.
Also, it was with ex-friends we played. They crowd surfed Joel, who is not a crowd surfing person. He's the last
No.
person who would probably ever crowd surf. They just picked him up. He's big too. He's
Yeah.
maybe 6'3" or 4.
I could see Joel being very uncomfortable in that
It was
situation.
so uncomfortable. It was amazing. I love that show and I love that venue. And it was, yeah, just living room of a tiny little house. And the crowd was so cool.
That's fantastic. I
And I think it's Alex who does Hears, HIRS. I might be
oh,
getting it
oh,
wrong.
excellent.
I've been told how to say it many times and I can't retain it. I think it
Yeah.
was their house.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's
We're
one of the
involved at
things
least.
I think's been really cool. Just quick aside, is just the like wave of queercore bands that have come out in the last, especially as trans identity has become more accepted. Thankfully, it's been really cool just to see just these waves of punk bands that are like really getting to be themselves. The
Absolutely.
good side of punk rock. Uh, okay, so my number 9 is I just loved playing there because it was one of the coolest venues I've ever been in. We didn't have a great show there. I imagine if we had a great show there, it would have been better. Nirvana played there when they got back together. It's St. Vitus in Brooklyn. It is a metal bar. Everything in there is black. The bartenders were super like black toilets. Like it is such a heavy metal bar. We were not a heavy metal band, but it's such a cool venue. The bartenders were really chill, and we didn't have a great show there, but the show there was fantastic. And yeah, so St. Vitus.
Okay.
If you've never been there, I would check it out.
Okay. All right, number 8, I'm gonna say, and maybe think of Nirvana. This was maybe higher on my list, but is in my mind now, is the
Oh
Milestone,
yeah, that might
Charlotte.
show up later on mine. Yeah,
I've played there a lot of times, and I think this was not supposed to be shared, but it was now a previous owner. We once stayed there overnight because we noticed.
yeah, yeah. That's pretty common.
Okay,
Band
he's like,
stay in
don't
the
tell
milestone.
anyone. But I mean, at this point, it was over 10 years ago at least.
Yeah,
I love playing there. It's a cool, cool place.
yeah. Buck's awesome. Wiley Buck, the owner.
It used to be
Um,
someone named Neil.
huh? Yeah,
There's,
yeah, yeah. This is Buck took over, I think,
yeah.
5 years ago.
Okay.
I don't remember. He'll correct me, I'm sure. But he yeah, the milestone is one of my favorite venues. Uh, mine is my next one is going to be a place that uh we played a lot in Cleveland. It's a house show. It's called Dag House.
Okay.
I was fortunate enough to play that in two different bands. One of my friends, there are a couple of my friends in a band, Two and Fools, which are now some of them moved on to Heart Attack Man, which is a moderately successful, pretty like building popular band. But it was just a really cool house space in Cleveland, and I think it was right down the street from the house in A Christmas Story, if I remember correctly. My Cleveland friends probably will correct me, but it was a cool spot. Always had great shows, and there's just so many great bands in Cleveland. So that's my number 8.
Nice. I started making a list, so I'm not off the top, but I want to like not leave places
Yeah,
out.
no,
But I
you're
haven't
good.
figured out my 7 yet. Um, um, I'm gonna say, and I do have one big venue on here. For my 7, now I'm stuck. Or I'm gonna say the Trocadero in Philly, which I think
Oh,
I only
nice.
ever played as um like I don't think my band ever played a set there, but I played a couple times, like jumping in on a song
Yeah.
once, like on violin, once maybe vocals, something like that. But that's like such just a important place in history, and so I'll get
Yeah, that is
close now,
there's a lot of great landmark venues in Philly.
it's
That's
cool.
um
And I'll also say, hopefully this isn't breaking confidentiality, but 20 plus years ago when I worked in the nursing home, I worked with somebody who had been a burlesque dancer there, and I just loved her. And she was in her 90s
yeah,
at this point,
yeah.
and I just thought that was so cool.
That is I man, I love like venue histories, especially the ones that have been around for a long time when you get in there and just the stories that come out of there. I think one of my favorite things about people who tour and people who don't is when you get into that touring world, you realize just how small the world is. Like it
Hmm.
shrinks immediately because
Yeah.
it's like those big time bands were here a little while ago and you're playing the same places they were, and you get to learn who the cool people were and who the people that weren't so cool were. Um so we're on 7, right?
Yeah.
My number 7 is a place I've probably played more than anywhere. It's in Durham. It's where I got married. It's Motorco Music Hall. I like this. It was where I got married, so I clearly love it. Played a lot of
Yeah. I think
shows
I've played
there.
there.
It's not quite as good since they got rid of the garage stage. Now it's just I think we probably played a show there together.
Yeah.
And if we can be when you can be in the garage stage back in the old days, you could pack in 30, 40 people and it would be a good crowd. Whereas you really need to get into the hundreds in the main room to make, and
Yeah.
that can be tough to pull on a like a punk show in Durham. But when it was a good place, when main stage, when you got enough people in there, and garage stage, both of them I really enjoyed playing at because I played it the most, so it's got to make a spot on here.
I appreciated, not that this happened, but when we played there, there was a really young band that played, and
Oh
they said
yeah,
something homophobic, and this sound guy immediately
yeah,
off the microphones and was
yep,
like, "Nope, you're done." And
yep.
I appreciated the
Um,
response.
yeah, and I actually reached out to that kid after that happened, and I was like, hey, you screwed up, but that's not the end of your world.
Mhm. Absolutely.
And he apologized publicly, and he's like, one of the things I really appreciated about that kid. I never really got the band wasn't my kind of music, but he owned what he did and apologized for
That's
it,
what
and
you do.
I
We've
was
all
like,
said,
hey,
yeah,
like it was just a local show, but you didn't run away from it. Good for
yeah,
you. And
absolutely. We've all said things we shouldn't have said, and because we didn't know
great.
better.
I listen. If the internet had existed when I was a kid,
Yeah.
I said a lot of abhorrent things. I had to learn a lot of bad behavior.
Yes.
In punk bands, especially, it's there. So,
Yeah.
all right. What's your number 6?
Number 6, I'm gonna say CBGB because that
Oh, I'm
was
jealous.
so
I've never.
cool. And it's in New York City, so like my dad and my brother came, and
Yeah.
Yeah, CBGBs for sure.
Wow. Wow. I would have loved to have one of the greatest. My number 6, I'm gonna go with I only played there once, but the sound was great, the venue was great, the crowd was great. It's the Atlantic in Gainesville. I just had a really good show there. Well, actually, funny enough, we had a terrible show because we played with a bluegrass band, a solo guitarist, and we were a kind of pop punk emo band. Um, and we were the only ones with drums, and our drum pedal broke on the first song.
Oh,
So we just kind of winged it, but the crowd was great and everybody gave us a hard time, but in a good natured way. And it was just a really fun show, but the sound was incredible, and it was they treated us well. Great place to play. So, now we're into our top 5.
I know. I feel like I've run out of like places, but I'm just gonna have to go. Okay, I'm gonna say Beaumont Warehouse in Philly. I loved playing there. It's down the street. It's in West Philly by me, and it was a great place to play.
My number 5 is, I was already on your list. It's the Milestone. I played there in college, and I played there as an adult. They've always treated us well. I mean, the history in that place for North Carolina is outrageously good. And it's just it's a great venue. if you get a chance to go, and they've cleaned up the bathrooms, so they have real bathrooms now, which is, for a punk venue, is that's outrageously good.
Yeah, I feel like there has definitely been, like when you're on tour and you get like a running joke in the van,
Yeah,
like there's been jokes that have come from that bathroom that have like stuck with us for the
yeah.
rest of the tour.
I believe it. I believe it. I've seen some really great shows there too.
Yeah, I love it there.
What's your number 4?
All right, my number 4, I'm gonna say Fun Rama, which was this little house in the 90s, late 90s in West Philly. And that was some of my first like real house shows that weren't like real like punk house. It was my first punk house show, I'll say it that way. It wasn't a warehouse, and I loved it, and it was great. Oh wait, I'm thinking of the wrong place. I'm thinking of House of Conflict. And I said I'm picturing House of Conflict. House of Conflict and Fun Rama, it was the same kids, only they moved. They were both just great West Philly houses. Basement, treacherous stairs, packed, amazing.
Yeah, I played a show on the row houses in Philly, and it was great. It was great. We played the same night as Hop Along, though, so that was like everybody was like, even the person who put the show on was like, I want to go to that Hop Along show, so we got to get through this.
It's almost all row houses. Everything is rows.
Yeah.
The load-in is treacherous, but
so we're on number 4, right?
yes.
My number 4 is a Richmond house show that doesn't do shows anymore, but when they did, it was Church of Abe. It was run by Corey Chubb, excuse me. And it was just it was a great spot, and it was always packed. Like, I've seen so many shows there. I played a couple of shows there, always packed. So,
all right, my number 3 is the Kill Time, which was a warehouse through the 90s and into the 2000s on Lancaster Avenue in West Philly, and it was just amazing. There were 3 warehouses side by side. My number 1 is one of the others, but just amazing. And it was that whole block, and that was like when I first moved to Philly, so that was like my introduction to the scene here, and it was just,
oh man, yeah, that's magical. My number 3 is a loft apartment that is no longer doing shows because, this is the nature of house shows. It was called What We Talk About When We Talk About Alston. We played a loft apartment, and it is, to this day, the single best show I've ever played in my life in any band I've ever been in. I was afraid we were going to collapse the floor. The crowd went wild. The show was great. I mean, we had people asking us to come back to Boston like the next day, like when are you coming back? And unfortunately, that band broke up before we ever got to get back up there. But there are people in my life that still talk about that show because of how like legendary it was. So,
Nice.
so I only played there once, but that was the best show of my life. So it's got to make the list.
All right, I'm on number 2. I'm realizing that I forgot this place in Morrisonville, New York by Plattsburgh, which I love to play at, but they get on, they should have been like up on the list. I'm gonna say the Pleasure Bungalow for number 2. It was my friend Chris Pilaut's basement. And he had shows there for several years. And yeah, West Philly basement show, best thing in the world, almost always packed and raucous and amazing. And he did Halloween shows, and you could get a discount if you brought candy, and then we just eat all the candy. And remember once the cops came, we were being assholes, and I was the one to like go talk to them and have them move on. And I forgot that I was completely, it was either Bride of Frankenstein or Zombie. It was one of those two. And I caught my reflection in the car window, and I was like, oh, I'm talking to cops like this. But it worked out. They left us alone. All right, that's number 2.
My number 2 is a defunct Richmond landmark that's been to multiple venues, but was most recently Strange Matter. I actually the very last band I was in, which we ended at the pandemic, was played the last day of Strange Matter, and man, a great venue. I was lucky to play there once in that band, but it's an iconic spot in Richmond. Lots of great bands have played there. Sounds great. They're a very Richmond venue, and everybody's hoping at some point somebody will come in and reopen it, because it's a bummer that it's gone. So,
Yeah.
All right. So what's your number
All right,
one?
my number 1. I know I'm doing a lot of old. I guess it's because we like to reminisce, but it's
Yeah.
Stalag 13, which was my first real punk show in Philly. Not like, because we played like, we pushed our way into frat houses on Temple's campus,
Sure,
but this was my first real show.
Yeah.
I mean, when I say just like heaven, it was just punk show. It was a dilapidated warehouse. When it rained outside, it rained in. One of my best friends ever, Mikey Brosnan, is the one. He rented it, and it was just like an old garage warehouse, and turned it into one of the best punk venues ever. And I played there a bunch. I remember we played with Anal Cunt, and people were climbing the walls. It was so outrageous. Yeah. So that was just a definitely formative experience, getting to spend time there and be a part of that. Was in West Philly also.
Yeah, that's wonderful. My number 1 is in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. It is an underground bar, appropriately called The Cave. It is very small room. You played to 10 people and it feels packed, but I have played to 100 plus people in that room before. I have seen shows spilling over in capacity. The bar staff there was fantastic. Like the sound was amazing because the room was so small. The acoustics in there, like it had kind of this weird cave thing they'd put down there, and I thought, you go in there, you got to be hunched over to play. You're like, no way is this going to sound good. The acoustics were incredible.
Yeah.
Like they made your band sound better than you were. It was like a house show, because it felt like you were in somebody's like living room. There's no stage. There's just a stage area. But best venue I've ever played. I've seen some of my favorite shows of all time there, but without a doubt, hands down, if I could only play one venue, it would be The Cave. I would do it at any time. So, well, Audrey, I really appreciate your time. Thank you for teaching me more about the world of music therapy. And I hope you have a great day. And I hope your daughter's elbow heals up nicely. I'm sorry to hear about that.
Thank you. Thanks.